Sure. Go ahead, Francesca.
Thanks, Jen. You just suggested that the format that the president's remarks would take after the Chauvin trial could depend on the outcome of the trial. The president hasn't delivered a speech yet, though, on race relations or policing. So why not, and why wouldn't immediately after this trial, regardless of what the outcome is, be the time for him to do that?
Well, first I would say again that addressing race relations and improving equity in this country is central to his presidency and central to his focus every day. And his actions, his policies certainly play that out. I'm not going to get ahead of what the outcome of the trial will be. And I'm just attempting to set an expectation about that will decide what's appropriate and what the country needs to hear once we know the verdict and once we see the outcome.
You also said that he had been engaged directly on policing reform legislation. Has the president picked up the phone and called any Senate Republicans, such as Republican Senator Tim Scott, about policing reform legislation?
I don't have any calls to read out for you, but I can tell you that in his conversations with Democrats and Republicans, and he's spoken with many of both, he talks about a range of issues. I'll also say that a lot of the work on the George Floyd Act is happening on the Hill. And the negotiations between members of the Senate, you referenced Senator Scott, obviously Senator Booker is playing a vital role. They're going to have to work together with other members of the House to determine where there can be agreement and what an outcome can look like, and if they can come to agreement on that. That's the status. The president would love to have a bill come to his desk so he can sign it into law.
Well, last summer, policing legislation stalled because they couldn't come to a consensus on issues like qualified immunity, no-knock warrants, as well as bans on chokeholds. So what is the president's position on qualified immunity, and does he think that Democrats should agree to pass legislation that perhaps doesn't ban no-knock warrants or ban chokeholds, but would restrict their use in some capacity, such as limiting federal funding or something like that, in order to get Republican support for that bill and get a bill passed into law?
Well, we're going to allow Democrats and Republicans in the Senate to negotiate amongst themselves about what they think a final outcome or a final agreement could be. And we're certainly hopeful that they'll make progress in that, and the president is eager to sign policing reform legislation into law. And certainly we recognize it stalled last year. There's been work since then, and we're hopeful that the president will be able to sign a law. I can tell you that there are a number of steps that he has taken that he can take as president and his Department of Justice can take. And during the campaign, he emphasized the importance of the Department of Justice using the authority he spearheaded as a senator to investigate systemic police misconduct. That doesn't have to wait for Congress to act. And last week, Attorney General Garland reversed a Trump administration memo that limited the use of consent decrees with respect to investigation of police departments. The president also pledged to appoint DOJ leadership that would prioritize pattern or practice investigations. He has two critical nominees pending who would do exactly that, Vanita Gupta and Kristen Clark. He, of course, supports, as I already noted, the George Floyd Act. He has also called in his initial budget for increasing funding for the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division by millions of dollars in order to advance accountability and reform for abusive police practices. And finally, multiple states have taken action. Is it enough? No, it's not enough. He wants to sign federal legislation into law, but his own administration has taken steps, even while that legislation is working through the negotiations that happen in Congress.
Do you have, and I know you need to move on, but can you share with us what the president's position is on qualified immunity, no-knock warrants, or chokeholds?
I don't have anything new to share with you from what he has said on the campaign trail. I'm happy to provide that after. I'm sure you're familiar with his views.